Welcome back to Never Iron Anything Comics Review Podcast, episode 164. This week we're going to continue our short weekly interview series where I sit down with collaborators. This week it's a saucy threesome, two special artists you've heard of and heard from previously. I'm going to introduce them both at the same time. The Breaker of Hell, Ian Ashcroft, and the Breaker of Hymens, Cliff Cumber. Hi guys.
Oh.
How's that? That's all right.
Break hell. I get to break Hymens. How's that? That's lovely.
Do you think they break Hymens in hell? I don't know.
I imagine it's a thing they do all the time.
Yeah.
If it's hell.
Why are we starting at this? why are we starting at this?
I think the only person who is really is educated enough to actually answer that question is either Pat Mills or Ian Ashcroft.
Ian Ashcroft. What's your middle name, Ian?
James.
Ian J. Ashcroft.
Uh-huh.
I.J. Ashcroft. You should sign all your art. IJA.
So that was almost Borat.
Why am I getting bullied this early?
Oh no, it's too early. Yeah, I'll put the timer on. 45 minutes in, you're allowed.
Because we love you, Ian. Yeah. That's why. Well, I personally hate you as well.
You two have met now, so it's like we should have recorded that momentous moment, shouldn't we?
We met, we embraced, we left and parted as dear friends. Oh, it was just lovely to you, was it, Ian? To me, it was moving. It was monumental. It was a high watermark in my.
You described it as the best day of your life.
Fucking yes. Even more so than the birth of my children and the marriage to my wife. I think, if as I die, I will utter the words Ian Ashcroft instead of Rosebud or any of that noxious stuff.
Because as Ian walked away, you went, "I feel rebirthed," and Ian went,
"I did."
What do you say? And you went, "I didn't say anything."
After birth, no. I was... Yeah. So anyway, no, that was actually it was really nice to meet Ian. I have to say that because I've given him enough shit in my life.
Quite a lot. Yeah.
Quite a lot, and also quite a lot of praise, often in the same sentence. So,
yeah, I think How was it for you, Ian?
Really...
It's great, thank you. Everything's going really well. Do you mean meeting Cliff?
Just generally in your life? That is one of my questions. How have you been? I've written it down.
I have
to remind me to social graces.
Well,
yeah.
I've been very well. I've been doing the GCSE artwork with my year 11 students, so that sort of takes over your life. And then,
have they had exams? Is that the year you do exams?
Yeah, they do like 10 hours in the art room. That's quite stressful, and I've got 2 groups as well, so there's a lot of students, and then after that you're on to marking it all, and that just takes over your life for a little bit. But the weather's starting to pick up, and it's just nice spending time with family and friends and stuff like that. So it's been.
How have the mighty Liverpool done this year? I don't know. Are they doing well?
They were doing really great, and then in the last few weeks it's just all fell apart for them. So
oh no.
I know. And then Klopp's leaving at the end of the season, so we've got a new manager coming in, and we'll see. But still the greatest team in the world.
How about you, Cliff? How have you been?
I was fine, apart from the last 30 seconds. I have no idea what you guys were talking about. It sounded like a buzz.
You sent me. Am I allowed to say that you sent me a really lovely drawing? Who's that? Someone there. A really lovely drawing of Batman and Dylan Dog today.
Oh yeah, that is just for you. I have not posted that anywhere.
That is amazing. Have you seen it yet?
For you.
No, I haven't. No,
I haven't shared it with anybody.
Great.
Oh,
it's all right.
It's good. That deserves to be a print.
It's all right.
Okay.
Okay. We're going back there again. For anybody who knows the lore and history of Tony and their relationship, there was this time in Heroes, actually, 2022.
Yeah, we're going back there in a few weeks.
On my birthday, because it was held across my birthday.
Is it your birthday this time?
No, it's a week after. But anyway, he's trying to derail me from telling this story because it's a naturally embarrassing kind of story. But he had me doing commissions, dear listeners, and then in order to motivate me, I would show him these commissions, but he would just sort of go, "Yes, all right."
I can't remember it. I think it might have been because I had the hump after Lunchgate,
Here we go. Well,
Yeah.
I forgot to buy you lunch.
Well,
Yes.
they'd gone to
Okay.
they said I was going to nip off and get lunch, and they were gone for like 4 hours, Ian. And they came back with massive fucking goblets of wine, a big, like, a big plate
A
of
literal,
food.
a literal cornucopia that was
Yeah.
hand woven. This is why it took so long. It
And
was
then they
hand
sat
woven.
next to me and they started eating it. I'm like, yeah, I genuinely thought it was a fucking wind up. I'm like, you're having a Turkish here, aren't you? What's going on?
That's really unfair.
And
That's
then
terrible.
it slowly realised, and Ian picked up the lump of chicken off of his food and said, "You can have some of these chips." And I'm me being a dedicated vegetarian, went, "No, I probably won't do that." And I went upstairs and had a packet of crisps sat on one of the benches upstairs.
Oh.
I did, to be fair, offer to go back and get you some food.
It was like the
So
longest queue,
at that
wasn't it?
point.
Yeah.
At that point,
That
you
may have
were,
been why I did it. I can't remember doing it. I remember you saying now that I did it, but there you go. I'm usually encouraging. Who did I compare you to in one of your pieces this week?
A turd.
No. Who?
He said it looks like somebody drew this with their ass and they used a partially ejected turd.
No.
That's what you said.
I want you to say it now. You have to say it. Say the truth.
I can't remember. I have no idea. Can I? Oh, Bernie Wrightson.
Thank
Bernie
you.
Wrightson.
I
Thank
did.
you,
I compared
yes.
one of the images to Bernie Wrightson from the upcoming Tony Osmond 2. There's a plug. Okay, so we're going to do we're going to do an icebreaker now. Not that we fucking need one, to be fair, but I set you an icebreaker question, and the icebreaker question: what is the best Phil Collins song? So let's go to Ian first. What is the best Phil Collins song?
I'm not a massive Phil Collins fan, Tony.
What is?
I would say Another Day in Paradise.
Another Day in Paradise. Okay.
Yeah, because when things are going wrong in work and it's all going a bit mad, I look at my technician and I'll occasionally say, "Just another day in paradise for you."
Okay.
And
That's
it.
nice.
It is.
Not the
I might
correct
sing
answer,
it.
but it's a nice answer. What about you, Cliff?
I mean, honestly, really, look. I mean, you got like Easy Lover. I don't care anymore. Don't lose my number. I mean,
He's reading
I mean,
these
but
off.
personally,
He's reading them.
Studio.
Oh!
For me, Studio. But for me personally, and I know this one, you know, it's like it's got the fatigue of just having been like a monster hit back in the day. But In the Air Tonight, to me, it doesn't get better than that.
Okay, you are an old romantic, aren't you? I mean, the correct answer was Studio.
Well, there you go.
You're almost there. You're almost there. And I remember a friend of mine at school when it was out. He said, "Do you know how Phil Collins got that name?" And I went, "No, no." He said, "Because he asked directions from someone with a stutter." And I believed that for years as a kid. That's where that came from.
Well, you know who else was a big Phil Collins / Genesis fan, right?
Who?
And that was Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
yes.
he was.
Say Hitler or
One of
something.
Oh my God, no, not Hitler. Although he would have been had he been.
He liked
alive
the
at
Stones.
time.
Well, let's get on to
Big
what we're
Nirvana.
talking about now. Thank you for your answers on that one and your deep consideration. And you clearly had it written down, Cliff. So I'm very impressed. Now let's remember. I was reminded of a quote today from Aristotle that said, "The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance." And I thought that's good. I like that. Yeah,
that is good.
that's a good little quote. So we're gonna cover a couple of things here. I've pre-sent you these questions, so I no doubt considered them. Let's start with you, Ian. I don't think I know what your formal training is, if you have any. Well, how did art start?
So when I was very young, I really just enjoyed drawing, and my dad is a capable drawer, and he did a lot of sort of teaching me proportion techniques and how to draw the figure and stuff like that. And at school, I can remember I used to get praised by the teachers for that, and that soon sort of became the thing that I felt was what I was all about. You know, I was the kid who was good at art in the classroom, and then I can remember I'd always get taken out of lessons to help with like wall displays, and I can remember doing one for War of the Worlds, and you know, if the school had a pantomime, a Christmas pantomime or something on, I'd be involved in just doing all that in primary school, and I really just loved it. And then sat my 11 plus, which I failed and went to the local comprehensive school. And then when I got in there, the head teacher was like really pushing me to do my GCSE in first year, and I obviously thought that'd be a great idea. And the art teacher was like, no, you need to hold off. You need to sort of develop as an artist before you do something like that. And I think that was like the start of a point in education where I was just a little bit like, me against the teacher all the time. And I think you hear stories like this a lot with art. It's so personal. And I think I just had a massive ego from really young. And I just constantly was rebelling against my art teacher. And school was like tough anyway. And you just get through it, and done my GCSEs and then went into straight into A level. Started really feeling a lot of disbelief with the whole thing, because it seemed to be going more towards like modern art, and you were getting pushed to do like modern paintings and working in new ways. And I was very much rooted in traditional approaches.
Interesting.
And then I went into uni, and the wheels just completely fell off.
What did you study at uni in?
Well, because it wasn't going well, like the courses I took were like, like the social sciences were a big deal back in. So I was on like communication studies, which literally is a nothing. I can't really tell you what I was meant to be getting out of that. And I did fine art, but the art course lost its funding halfway through the second year. So the course got really stripped back, and it ended up me just sort of sitting graphic design modules and stuff like that.
Okay.
Which I do love design, but that's not the area of art that I was really interested in. So I always felt all the way through my art education, which was that is my training, that I was just, like I said, sort of like rebelling against the teacher, not buying into what the teachers were saying to me, struggling to find artists that really inspired me or influenced me, that I wanted to really sort of run with and think that was the way forward.
Do you think that disillusionment is what drove you to be an art teacher now? Did it have the opposite, or did that take some time?
What happened was, when I came out of uni, I was just done with the whole thing. I didn't really want to know about it, and I didn't draw for years.
Oh, wow.
My youngest sister is 9 years younger than me, and she happened to be going through her GCSEs, and she was doing this fashion illustration project. And I can remember sort of going around Liverpool with her, and we walked all around. We went to the cathedrals, we went everywhere. We did the whole city just on foot, taking photos of like street signs, stained glass windows, anything that I thought might be visually interesting. And then we came home, and sort of like together we sort of came up with different fashion designs based on the imagery and the iconography we'd seen. And I can just remember my dad sort of say, after like years of sort of working in retail and just being a bit lost, really, my dad sort of said to me, you did that really well. Why don't you think about teaching? Which literally couldn't have been a job that was further from my mind. And I can remember going there, and it was Grand National Day, because the uni I went to was in Ormskirk. And I was on the train, and they were all dressed up and everything. And I was there with my little art portfolio. And I just basically begged them to take me on the course. I didn't have the qualifications that were high enough to get onto a teaching course, but I showed them a portfolio, and I just said, please let me just give me a shot. And I persuaded myself onto a PGCE, which is the art training thing for a teacher. And I just ran with it, and I've been doing it for 20 years now.
Wow.
I do love it.
Your dad clearly had a big impact on you then.
Yeah, he did.
He
did. I think I was really sensitive to how my dad was. There was times where it would have been hard for my dad, because things, like I said, a lot of the time I was not going in a direction that probably either of us was happy with. And then, I think what it's done though in the long run has been really useful, because if I have a challenging student or someone who's a little bit difficult to reach, I can tend to have a lot of patience with them, because I know maybe, how they're thinking a little bit. But yeah, that was sort of like my formal education. And then the other side of it is, I can remember going on here. Sorry.
That's right, mate. Sounds great.
I can remember like comics, and that was always something I looked at from afar and really wanted to get involved with. Like, especially like fantasy illustration or something. Before we started recording, Cliff was talking about Terry Pratchett. And I can remember I just loved the book covers by Josh Kirby, who is a Liverpudlian artist,
All
actually.
right.
And I loved all that fantasy art and fantasy illustration. But I never felt like I was really in a position to access it or go over to the shelves that had the comic books, because in my school it was just like if you did anything that was outside what was prescribed as the way to be socially, you just got murdered. It was like very much you were on this train track, and if you deviated from that, or if you showed an interest in something that was like considered geek culture, you just get
Different
it would
world, man,
just
back then, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
Before we won, I like to refer to it as,
yeah,
before we won the world.
yeah.
But have you ever looked at your dad's stuff and realised it's very similar in style, or it's dissimilar? Have you ever compared?
Yeah, I think it is. My dad's one of these people who just completely dismisses what he did. I can remember he lived in like this big sort of semi-detached three-story house on the edge of Birkenhead Park, and I can remember going up to his room, which was in the attic that he'd had when he was my age growing up, and he painted this like it was a guitar player. It might have been Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix. I actually can't remember, but I can remember just being wild with it because it was also painted in like luminous paint. So when you turn the lights off, it glowed in the dark and everything like that. So, but he draws like very rarely now. I wish he'd do more, but it just.
Oh wow!
I don't know. Just life gets in the way, and if it's not, I just felt like it's always been a massive impulse to do it. Really,
Yeah.
you have to get it out. But
That's great, man. I've not heard that story from you before. That is interesting. Yeah.
yeah, probably went a bit deep there.
No,
Sorry.
it's great. Cliff has something to live up to now. He has to tell us his story. So, what do you think, Cliff?
I don't think I can beat that for pathos for sure. No, I mean honestly, I think the if we're talking about the encouragement. Now I'm a dad. The encouragement or lack of encouragement that we try to provide our children and the things that we hope they will be interested in is so difficult. It's so difficult to sort of lead from the front and be passionate about those things. But I had my parents were not super involved in my life in terms of sort of being that kind of cheerleader. So I've always sort of tried to be that for my kids and sort of encourage them in doing the things they want to do. And for my sins, my daughter she wants to become an art teacher like you, Ian. So
that's nice.
American public school system. But I mean, that's a fascinating story. It's like how you sort of, But my story is that I've always loved comics, always. Ever since I was like a tiny kid. I'm 53 now, so my mum started buying me comics. Weezer, Beano. Not Beano, Whizzer and Chips. I was a Whizzer, not a Chips. And just all kinds of like weekly comics, action, battle, Whoopee. I had a good few of those.
Yeah.
And I got those every week at the newsagents for way longer than I should have been reading Whizzer and Chips. I mean, I was like 17 or 18 before we canceled that subscription, But also like 2000 AD as I became older, 2000 AD was wrapped into it. And then the Marvel UK stuff. And I always wanted to draw comics. I have, memories of sitting on the floor of the living room with a copy of, the Black Hole, the movie The Black Hole.
Yeah.
There was a comics adaptation with that. It was not, I think Kirby did one. Or I can't remember. I mixed it up with 2001. I believe there were a couple of different iterations of the Black Hole, but I had the other one, whatever the other one was, that wasn't like the famous artist. And I remember being so fascinated by that movie and that comic book and drawing the robots in there and drawing the people. I never really did the cartoony stuff that I was seeing in Whizzer and Chips. I always wanted to be kind of like, that's what I want to draw, that sort of sci-fi, that machines and things like that. And that has always been a part of my sort of growing up. Yes, I did go to art college in '86. I left college before my A-levels and ended up sort of, I wanted to do art. I knew I couldn't do it at my school. So, that sort of, when you were saying, Ian, about how, your school was not the environment where doing that was the thing that you should be doing. They wouldn't encourage it. They always wanted you to fit into a different role, whatever that stamp was, And I have really had that at my school. I went to a public school called Merchant Taylors, and it was it very much emphasized chemistry, sciences, politics, because we want barristers, lawyers, engineers, all those kinds of things to be turned out. And here am I, like, I just want to draw, I just want to paint, I just want to do the art stuff. And they were like, yeah, no. I'm like, but you got this massive art block. And I was still like, yeah, no. So my parents were like, well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I want to go to art school. And they were like, oh, okay. So I ended up going to Amersham College of Art and Design and doing a diploma, a general, like one of those generalized 2-year courses where you sort of dipped into all of the different kinds of art.
Did you go and live away at art school? Were you that sort of classic art school kid, or did you travel backwards and forwards from home?
No, so it was just sort of it was like a BTEC degree or something.
Okay.
I can't even remember the name of it. It was so long ago. And it's no longer the Amersham School of Art and Design. It's like Amersham College or something right now. But no. So I lived in Chinner, which is in Oxford, near Oxfordshire. It's in Oxfordshire, and I would just drive to Amersham every day and back.
Because I've seen pictures of you from that period. You've shown me, and you look like you're working for Vertigo, and you're off your face. There's a bit of that going on somewhere. Yeah,
that was my art school experience. In fact, my initial 2 years, I failed my initial 2 years. Right. Because I was drinking and whoring too much.
Not literal whoring, gentlemen. Yep.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
Oh, wait.
Fine.
Okay. No. Yeah, you're right. No, I absolutely.
They
deny
paid you.
I
believe it's the phrase.
Well, it's pretty enough. So all the way through that, the only thing I wanted to do was draw comics. And so that has always been a facet of my artistic experience as I've gone through life. And I went to art college. I did some I did apply to Marvel UK. I got a very nice letter from Paul Neary saying, thank you, this is great, but you're not quite there yet. One of the best letters I ever had. And I'm so sad that we lost him recently, that I couldn't say to him, thank you. You won't even remember it, but I do.
Well, we did a bit of that at New York, didn't we? Didn't you go up to someone and say, you gave me some advice? Who was that? Was it Art Adams?
Oh, I was Art Adams, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember back in 1986 that Chris Claremont and Art Adams were in London they were there at the invitation of the Forbidden Planet comic shop on Denmark Street back at the time.
Yeah.
And I believe there's like a university or something down the end of the street. I can't remember, but they had a room in that, and the queue was out the door. And me and my friend Dean grabbed our portfolios and took them, and we stood in line for hours. Finally got to see the big man. Chris Claremont, miserable bastard, but he was actually really nice to my friend. He was like, yeah, you will be ready to work for Marvel in a couple of years, which never actually panned out. But
right.
So Art Adams was sitting there, and I put my work in front of him. It was like this shitty drawing of Spider-Man, and he was like, yeah, you need to work on your anatomy. So anyhow, fast forward 35 years, and you and I...
Me and you are wandering around. Yeah.
Wandering around the grizzled pits of Artist Alley in New York at the New York Comic Con. And we both saw Arthur Adams, and we were like... Okay,
he was on his own, wasn't he, as well? Yeah.
He was on it. He had like a little helper person who he had to address. And he was sitting there drawing, and you talked to the helper person. And that was when I just looked at him. I said, you gave me a piece of advice 30 years ago.
He sort of looked up a bit shocked, didn't he? But
yeah. Yeah. And actually, it was a good icebreaker, because he was like, what was that then? And I was like, you said I should focus on my anatomy as an artist. Like, well, did you? And I was like, yeah. And it was like, yeah, that's what I mean. And
after that, he was how super nice was he?
He's notoriously grumpy, right? Everybody who's met him says he's super grumpy, but he was super nice to us. I think, A, we're the same age, right? And B, I think
we're not young idiots. But worst, and then we said, let's have a picture with him. And he said, I'll pretend I'm shouting at you in the picture. So he's making this face pretending he's shouting at us. It's just fucking brilliant. Exactly, they're the little nice memories. We didn't come across a person at that, did we? We had a photograph with or anything who wasn't everything but lovely. at that?
No, we have been tremendously lucky, and I don't know what it is that we do, but people we have run into at comic conventions have just to a person
been lovely, haven't they?
really wonderful.
Yeah.
Even the ones who have been. I mean, you said. I know we're getting off the topic of like my art origins here, but when you said you had a long conversation with Howard Chaykin.
Yeah,
who
lovely.
is notoriously
Oh man, he was
bastard.
brilliant.
He does not suffer fools, but
No,
you had
not
like
at
a
all.
long conversation with him.
We had a conversation about Shakespeare for like 20 minutes.
Right.
He's at Heroes,
Oh yeah, we need
so I
to
can't wait to see that.
him.
Right, I know Ian's sitting here bored listening to our reminiscences.
I'm not bored at all. No.
The old men shout at clouds.
Well, let's move it on a bit to influences, because I know I can guess some of yours, and I know Ian, we've spoken about Jay Lee as well previously. You want to say something, Cliff?
Oh yeah, I was going to say I wanted to flip the script on this, Tony. And
Okay.
I wanted you, with your extraordinary encyclopedic expertise, to tell us what you think our influences are.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was going to talk in a sort of peripheral, slightly off subject way, very similar to what you're going to say there. But
Yeah.
okay, well, let's do that first then, because
I'd like to also hear from Ian what he thinks our influences are.
Well, let's switch it. Well, let's come back to influence in a second. Then let's do
All
this.
right, okay.
Let's do
Okay.
this one.
I'm
now,
messing it up.
Ian, you get to choose
Yeah.
any character in comics to draw. Who do you draw?
Yeah. Slain.
I've written Slain down. Fucking hell. How good am I? That's my character I've written down. Slain for you. Yeah.
Slain. I'd love to have a go at that one. I don't think I ever will.
Right.
But
Never say
everything
never.
about that character, the whole story, the concept. There you go.
Yeah.
Mystic Tony. I just think it's set up for me, and I would love to have a go at that one day, definitely.
Well, bearing in mind, you're very close to the only man who can bring him back,
Yeah,
Pat.
That's true.
Yeah.
yeah, and I would only ever draw it if it was a Pat Mills script.
Yeah.
Not interested in anything, but that would be my one. I think we've done an episode on here about the Horned Garden. I love Glenn Fabry's work on it, and I really love Simon Davis's, and you were very kind and generous, and you bought me a copy of that book while we were down
when we're in London. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you
He's
so
so
much.
good, isn't he? That book blows my mind. Some of the overhead shots and
and that's how I sort of will talk about influences more, but that is kind of how I have discovered my influences, by getting immersed in one book like Slain, and then just thinking, oh my God, I started with Simon Bisley, and then you just realize that there's this whole plethora of other artists that have all worked on this book, and then you go away and you look at other stuff they've done, and before you know it, you're in some sort of chain reaction where every other thing you're looking at, you're thinking, oh, it opens a new door to you and a new world of artists and ideas.
That's interesting, man. Have you gone back and looked at the sort of Ballardinelli?
I have looked at it and I am aware of it.
It's
And
fantastic.
I like Ballardinelli's work a lot, but I'm sort of just stuck. I'm stuck with the sort of Simon Bisley, Glenn Fabry, and Simon Davis kind of, and the latest issue of it I thought was excellent as well. But I've forgotten the artist.
Yeah, and I can't remember it either. But it's outstanding. In fact, it's so good. I'm glad they brought it back with that last creator, and I can't remember his name. But
and follow that as well, because that is just. Is it Mancout Leonardo?
Yeah, Mancout. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, brilliant. I've got the hardback, I think, for that. It's just incredible.
Yeah,
Slane's one of those. Slane's a bit like, obviously it has its parallels to Conan, but it's one which you have these ages of Slane, don't you? You have these periods, which is how it works with the different artists. I think sometimes we think, I don't like different artists on whatever our favourite character is. I'd rather if it was just fucking Bagley or Romita Jr. or something, But with that, there's so definitive periods of Slane's life that they're defined by the art and the writing in one go, almost, like a book of legends, almost, sort of thing. The other one I had written down for you was Dylan Dog.
Yes,
I think your sort of handsome style of slim but lethal kind of guys that you've been drawing with Hellbreaker. I think it worked on Dylan Dog.
Hellbreaker's got. It was interesting because you've been sharing a lot of Dylan Dog work on the Slack, and I bought a book from Dylan Dog in French, and I thought you could almost take the Hellbreaker character and move it across, and I thought that's quite interesting, really, because like when Pat was saying about what he wanted that character to look like, it was so hard not to make him look like James Bond. You know, he's a white guy in a tux, so it was like, how do you not make him look? And I think that lean, athletic, handsome, kind of boyish look as well.
Lithe,
very in line with, very in line with
he's not a bruiser, he's a ballet dancer of a fighter almost. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we've talked, three of us have over the last few weeks have talked about the dog. And I'm a big fan. I always buy the Italian fumettis when I'm out there that I can't read but look gorgeous, you know. And then we've had these more artistic versions of it. But it inspired you to do a Batman crossover. What did you do that in a fucking day, Cliff? Because that's incredible. Can I share it with Ian while we're talking?
Yeah, please do. Yeah. That was just some doodling for about an hour, and the only thing I really drew were the main figures. I cheated a little bit on the background, if you can tell, but using the magic of digital art. I did that because I read Batman Dylan Dog, like the three issues of it, and was just, you had recommended it, and I was like, this was such a great recommendation. I'm going to draw something, and you know what? I'm going to dedicate that to Tony because he made the recommendation.
Oh no, I'm just recommending some true art. You know, that's all I'm doing. But it's an outstanding series.
The art on it is there's very few books where I just linger on the art and I'm like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Gigi Cavanago and Werther Deladera. I'm not quite sure who did what or how.
I think Gigi does the line work, does he? I know because he's done the late
poster. He does the line work. Yeah.
Well, he does the line work. And he did.
Cliff, that Dylan Dog picture is fantastic.
It's great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I'm just looking at it now. It's amazing.
Spot the bat.
Yes, I can see it. It's amazing.
He is there.
Because we were talking about it. I was saying you should add colour to the Dylan Dog character because he's got that bright red shirt, isn't it? It's very distinctive, and leave the background in black and white, and it would be striking as fuck. Really would.
Yeah. No, I probably will do that and put a little colour on it. I'm kind of lazy, so it might take a while.
I'll get that done as a print, man. I'd get it done as a print.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was one of those where I was just like, oh, you know what? I feel like drawing this, and it just kind of Ian will understand this, but you know, sometimes the lines just fly out of the end of your pen, right? And you know, it just happens. It just somehow some magic coalesces, and the images and forms, structure, and composition just come out just right. You know. And that was one of those where it was like, that just happened very, very quickly. I think, and that's only recently, but I find sort of, you know, things pop up that inspire me randomly, and I have to scratch the itch to a degree, you know, and the ABC Warriors was one for like a little while where I was doodling and all kinds of things.
That was going to be my answer to the question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Who should you draw? And the first one I had was Nemesis. Because I think you're the only person capable of doing an O'Neill nemesis for me.
That is possibly one of the highest compliments I've ever had.
Oh, you've got that capability to draw it whatever you like, but you've got a strangeness, and I mean this in the most beautiful way. You've got a strangeness to your art that works, and
and I feel comfortable with that. That sort of those images are things I feel tremendously comfortable with. And you know, we were talking about influences. I've had influences all along, all throughout my life, and you know, whereas it just used to be I like to copy things, and now it's kind of like, okay, form, motion, composition. These are now the things that I find as influential, and to me, you know, nothing has ever exceeded the ability of somebody like Kevin O'Neill. I just to this day, and Bisley and those guys, you know, Bisley for ABC Warriors, but also Cy Spurrier, I think, was just. I mean, can you think of another time and this is a completely separate discussion, but another time when there was so much energy and in art, in comic book art, but also so many different styles, right? You know, you were talking about Bellardinelli, but you're also talking about Fabry, who is a realist, very realist in his depictions. Bisley, who is sort of, he's got that kind of metal sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
You know, that heavy metal feel.
I think you're right, man. You've got a comic that's got Dave Gibbons on page 1. You've got Mike McMahon on page 5. You've got Carlos Esquire on page 8. You know, and Bellardinelli on page 12. You know, it's just, where is that mix these days?
How do you square those things? How do you? I mean, how does somebody like Pat Mills, and this is part of his genius, and you know, I mean, from my perspective, Pat Mills helped choose those artists to do these things, right? And the eye that he had to have to say, okay, well, you know, Bellardinelli drawing Slain versus Fabry drawing Slain. How the fuck do you? They are worlds apart.
Yeah.
But yet their styles were perfect for that Slain story.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of, it's that mysterious.
I think it goes to prove that as an editor, you need to be a perfectionist. You need, you know, and I was reading a book on Battle yesterday, and there was a bit in it where Pat was being slow to get it out, and they were saying, well, this is because he's so choosy about who he has. And I think he's right. And if you look at 2000 AD, certainly for the first 500 issues, they don't really put a foot wrong along it. You know?
No, it's a remarkable run.
Yeah.
And to think that was happening weekly, and you know, and I mean, and the you know, 2000 AD was bringing in artists from outside of the UK, from Italy.
I was just reading some Redondo. You know, incredible.
Redondo.
Yeah.
Unbelievable stuff. So that, you know, I grew up on that stuff, and it's like the influences are always there in the back of my mind. Just, you know, so for you to say I could do Nemesis is I disagree with you, but you know, B is just a huge compliment. I mean,
absolutely,
to be able to handle. I've drawn Slain, and I know Ian has drawn Slain, and you know how difficult Slain is to actually draw? It's hard to tell you how difficult it is to capture the hair and the axe and the armor and everything else in a way that sort of, and to be able to draw Nemesis in a way that evokes Brian Talbot and Kev O'Neill and all of those incredible artists and Redondo who were, it's like, they are impossible. If you want to challenge yourself as an artist, and I say this to anybody who's listening, if you want to challenge, try drawing Nemesis or Slain or any of like the ABC Warriors or any of those guys. It's almost impossible. I mean, they
even Judge Dredd with the asymmetrical design and the crazy sort of shoulder pads. I think Nemesis is the hardest. Having drawn Nemesis, and I think with the Slain,
I think Slain is the hardest. I couldn't get the hair right.
I've drawn Slain about three, maybe 4 times, but I've always kept it quite sketchy because I don't know. I just never wanted to try. I've never really tried to find my definitive version of how I draw that character. Every time I've drawn it, it's looked completely different.
Right.
Because I think when you're copying someone else's sort of design, you're trying to find your own way, your own interpretation, and if you settle on an idea too early, you might go in the wrong direction. So
it's interesting,
and it's so noticeable. That's the thing. It's when somebody is uncomfortable with that, you can tell. You know, but the early designs of things like 2000 AD that still are resonant in the back of my head and in my mind when I put pen to paper are so amazing. I think it's difficult to appreciate just how well designed they are, but also like how difficult they are to draw, you know, how difficult they would be to consistently render, not just like one-off like I would do or Ian has done, but on a week-to-week basis to be able to constantly come back with that kind of quality, you know.
So I often think of someone like Brendan McCarthy as well, you know. Look at what he did. Incredible. Just otherworldly. Yeah.
But he brought color into it. That's the thing. It's like Brendan McCarthy could color. He could color the shit out of those pages.
What was he using? Was he using like felt tip highlighter pens and stuff like that.
Alcohol markers, I think. Alcohol
Right.
markers mostly.
Oh, okay.
And maybe mixed media stuff. But his ability in line and tone and color is just immaculate. I mean, and to have his own distinctive style that was within that, not the million miles away from Jamie Hewlett, not a million miles away from Philip Bond. You know, all of those artists at that period who were, and McCarthy just got better. That's the thing. I mean, you see his early stuff, and he did do some ABC Warriors.
Yeah, early on.
Stuff.
Yeah, very early on.
Early on, but you could see how he just how his art evolved. You know, and Steve Yoel and Zenith and those Zenith, those guys just hugely influential. And anyway,
It's incredible that you had G.I. Joe, and you had war stories like of being G.I. Joe, but you also had Bad Company, and you're like, these two exist in the same comic. It's incredible.
Right. Brett Ewins, right?
Yeah.
Was Bad Company.
Yeah, incredible
I mean,
stuff.
and people, and the thing is like people like Brett Ewins and Blair and Bellardinelli, they are not. I don't think they're artists that maybe you necessarily immediately look at and immediately like. Right.
Okay.
I think they have challenging styles where it does come down to sort of a degree of taste. I think, yes, of course, there are always people who are like, oh, that just scratches that little itch in my brain art-wise.
It took me a while to get used to Ace Trucking. I'll be honest with you. I love Ace Trucking Company, but it took me a while to get into it, or Inferno maybe. Yeah.
Right. But then, it's like the beauty of age, I guess, is you come back to these artists and you can reevaluate them for, I didn't like Bellardinelli as a kid. But, looking at him now, I'm like, Jesus.
I was almost.
This stuff is amazing.
I've chatted to Pat about this, and he talks a little bit about it in some of the books. Is the key change in Slane when you went from Bellardinelli to McMahon with the Sky Chariots, and he said there was a lot of fans who didn't like that happening because they would had got used to Bellardinelli, although he was the second artist on Slane, and then suddenly you had this just absolute fucking change, which, let's face it, didn't entirely work on the crappy paper they had. Either of them, really. Had it been if it had been in a coloured BD album, it would have worked a bit better. But, you had this sort of almost pencil line of the Sky Chariots thing going on for a while. And I remember being pissed off with it. I'm thinking, what's this change? What's happened here?
Yeah.
But
I think that it's really weird that it's like that was part of the energy of the time. Not
it was risk taking is really important in art, isn't it? A lot of the artists you're talking about operate almost on the extremes, and a lot of the comics that I see now sort of operate in the middle, in the safe zone. No one's particularly pushing and that's why the guy who works on Dylan Dog is just being a breath of fresh air, because he's pushing the art a little bit further than what you expected to see. And Kevin O'Neill did it. I think he was initially, for me, quite a hard one to get behind because I wasn't sure. I had to look at a lot of his stuff to fall in love with it. All of them were pushing the boundaries of what comic art could be, and they were all happening in a relatively small time period.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, within probably a small couple of offices in a building, in Fleet Street, wherever it was. And then but you've got all this talent flushing itself through the offices. Yeah.
But you know what? Half of the shit they produced, I can guarantee you, it was not like this intentional. I'm going to do this fabulous stuff. I think they probably week to week were just like hanging on by their fingernails, being able to produce this stuff because. If you look at the amount of rendering on a page in early 2000 AD versus what you see these days, the coloring does a lot of the heavy lifting now. But back in those days, there would be fully rendered backgrounds. Yeah. There would be fully rendered splash pages.
Yeah.
Right, Talbot. There would be all of this stuff that was happening behind the main characters. Spotted blacks, and just the details on it were amazing. So, you think, okay, well, they're masters. But then it's like, okay, well, no, they were under deadline pressure at the time.
Yeah.
Doing what they could. I'm working with the editorial control that, was trying to sort of keep pattern line, So it's really amazing that out of that frenetic kind of chaos, we are left with these masterworks.
It does charge so many of us, doesn't it? 2000 AD, and I think there's probably at least 10 years between you and I, Ian. But it does charge us both. It does sort of recharge our batteries. Is there anything else that you go to that? Let's go to you, Ian. When you're flagging a bit, what gets your juices flowing again? Is there anything you have a go to to get the creative stuff going again?
Yeah, I the flagging thing, first of all, just breaking that down. I listen to the Awesome Comics podcast, and Dan especially talks about this and that idea of, I'm flagging, but I'm still going to do it anyway. I'm still going to get on with the work and try and get through as much of it as possible. That was a big takeaway from listening to your other podcast, Tony, that I do that. I force myself to get it done.
Is that just professionalism, do you think?
Yeah, the desire to do it. Like, I can be a nightmare because it can become quite obsessive, and I can want to be at the drawing table probably a bit too much sometimes, especially if I'm near the start of a project or near the end of a project. I just want to either get something going or bring it to a conclusion. The kind of artists that I go back to, we were talking about one a little bit earlier. I love Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein illustrations. I found sort of Wally Wood really early on.
Okay.
I love Wally Wood's work.
Yeah. Which area of his work is sort of EC stuff, or is Thunder Agents?
EC. Yeah, it's EC stuff. I've got one of those big omnibuses with where you can see all the original art and stuff like that.
The sci-fi cover one, I know the one. Yeah, that's incredible.
It's absolutely amazing. And there's I think the one I've got actually has got the woman where she's sort of kneeling down, and the flames are and there's all these like figures in hoods behind her and around her. I think that might be part of it as well. But yeah, I really sort of something with a friend of mine sort of introduced me to him. And then there's sort of artists that I sort of gravitate to are the more realistic, I suppose, representational artists. So I've mentioned a lot of these before, but I really like Lee Bermejo. I think he sometimes gets a bit too static. He sort of suffers from the same sort of thing as Alex Ross, but I think and I really like Alex Ross, to tell you the truth, but I think Lee Bermejo's figures look dangerous and heavy, and he does a really good still image or a cover. I really like Adam Hughes as well.
Okay.
I think his sequential stuff is overlooked because he does such a great job with his covers. I think
a lot of personality in the faces, I think, with him.
Yeah, I think his story, his character acting, and some of the page layouts he does are really nice. And then the main one is the one. It would be like Jay Lee, but I do like a lot of the European and South American artists as well. My friend who worked for 2000 AD showed me like 1984.
Yeah.
A lot
Warren
of the artists
magazine.
All that kind of stuff. And is it Gonzalez who did the Vampirella covers, and Enrich Torres Pratt, he did the sort of paintings. And then Frazetta and Boris Fallaggio, and I don't know. I'm forgetting a lot of them, Tony.
No, it's great, man. No, I've never thought. We've never mentioned Frazetta before, but suddenly I see Frazetta. Yeah, definitely.
Frazetta a lot. Yeah, I always know when an artist's special because I can always almost remember the first time I got introduced to them. That sounds really weird. But, I can remember someone showing me Frazetta's work for the first time. I can remember where I've discovered an artist's work for the first time and where I saw it, And then we've already talked at length about the 2000 AD artists or artists related to that. They're all, like, massive. And is it Juan Jimenez who worked on Meta Barons for Jodorowsky and that kind of thing? All of that. All anything that falls within that sort of ballpark. And I know he's been mentioned a lot on the Slack again, but Dan Panosian,
I think is killing it. Covers game, best cover artist out there at the moment, isn't he? Really is.
Yeah, he's so good. I said something similar myself when someone, I think it was Dan, was posting some of the pictures of him, but I got slots a couple of years ago from Image, which was his sequential book.
Oh, yeah, I like that one. Yeah. Like the bare knuckle boxing gambling one. Yeah.
And the artist on Low as well, Greg Toshini. I really like his stuff. It's got a nice, real loose, liquidy kind of feel to it, and I really like that as well.
That's amazing.
So that's sort of like the ballpark of what I am.
Yeah. So where you say you're for, I can see those influences with Frazetta. He made me think of Jeffrey Catherine Jones, and I almost see the line between you two as a line between Frazetta and Jeffrey Catherine Jones, where the dynamism and the physicality of Frazetta I see in your work, but the tragedy and the shadow I see in your work for Jones. Cliff, is he someone, or are they someone that you've followed much, or?
No, that's completely new to me. I'd have to look that one up. Yeah,
okay.
No,
amazing.
I will definitely look that up. The interesting thing is Ian has cited all of these artists that he loves and influences, but the magic is that you won't detect those in Ian's work. It looks completely original, right?
Oh yeah, massively. I know immediately
in
an Ian
of
job.
Itself, right? So it's so difficult. This is why I was sort of interested to hear your perspective on what you thought our influences were, because it's difficult sometimes when you get to a point where you have developed your own voice as an artist. It's the same way you develop your own voice as a writer, you develop your own kind of look as an artist, right? And whereas you might have all of those influences in there, it's difficult to see them until you kind of specifically like tease them out. It's really weird, because I look at Ian's stuff and I'm like, I could sort of pick it apart, maybe find the influences, but to me it looks so unique.
Yeah,
it's itself. It is a piece of Ashcroft artwork.
For you two, and for a lot of other people I've worked with, like Nick or Helena or Falpi or something, I almost see, when I look at their art, or I look at you now, I look at an image of you now, I see you as your art. I don't mean you've drawn yourselves, but I would just mean there's such an impression of personality from an established and experienced artist that it's got something about you in it. And I have this theory, there's something about people in their art. There's something about Kirby, he's this sort of ex-soldier bruiser. There's something about the dynamism of him in there. There's something of the Gil Kane in Gil Kane, sort of tall and lanky, extended muscular characters. There's something of the Chaikin in the characters he draws, with the big shoulders and the dapper dudes. And I don't know. And it's complete reaching, utter reaching. But I see it both in your work. I can see you both in your work. And I don't mean in the spiritual way, and I don't mean in an actual way. But does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it absolutely does. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you've got to forge your own way forward, and you're going to be. I suppose when we're talking about influences, the people you see around you, your family members, your own reflection in the mirror, everything, all of that comes together in it. When I'm drawing hands, I'm using my hands to draw them. So the physicality of the figures often reflects the physicality that you might have yourself. That's why I think a lot of comic artists, especially, or fantasy artists, will become pretty heavily built, won't they? They'll be lifting the big heavy weights to get the big muscle group in so they can see what's going on and stuff like that. So I think literally there maybe is a bit of the appearance of yourself in your work. And
you made me think of Capullo there, a bit like that, isn't it? Capullo's he can probably lift a few quid, can't he? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a lot of them. I think Bisley was bench pressing quite a lot at one point when he was doing slaying as well. I think there's a lot out there that do it.
But you both got the capability of drawing, elsewhere, otherwise, other world. That's the thing about it, because you've been doing it so long. I mean, Asquith. It doesn't look like you. We won't get into that, but do you know what I mean? There's a lot of characters you've both drawn. Tony Osmond doesn't look like you, Cliff. You have to have that ability to. Not everything's from life, is it? Some things are from your head. As I used to say when I was a kid. Yeah.
That particular character, though, Tony, that you've just mentioned, is influenced by one particular person quite large, but he's not just influenced by that person, who I won't mention at this point. I was also looking at a lot of old Steve McQueen films and Oliver Reed films as well. And I was putting those characters together. So not only is it like we were talking about literal sort of like representation, but you've also got your interests just sort of bleed into your art, whether you like it or not as well.
Yeah. So influence and emotional content bleeds into art, I think.
Yes, it does.
Sorry, Cliff, I interrupted you.
Oh no, not at all. I was just going to say, yeah, it's like part of the beauty of sort of getting to a certain point of accomplishment in your art is that you can experiment with it without having to worry too much about kind of, like all of the crap that younger artists have to worry about, right? So you become a little more free to with your lines and your pen work to be a bit more experimental, but not worry too much about it. But then you can also it's a hard one to sort of collate, because I think the very truth of the matter is I don't know how I do it. I know all I know is I do it. And if I can get like a year's distance between myself and some pieces, then I can objectively see them a little bit more.
Is there a lot? I mean, I think there's a lot of you on each page, mate. I remember thinking this when you did, and this is a bizarre one, when you did a Red Sonja for Vince Bonnet, Charlotte.
Oh yeah.
The powerful emotional content in the red and the face and stuff. I just felt like there's something of you in there.
Yeah. Are
we all men of high emotions? Does it all allow us to pour them into a page? Is there that personality on the page? And then Tony Osmond's the same when we worked on that. It's fucking hell. Apart from drawing my dong in it a lot, do you know what I mean? It's like
that was the best part. I don't feel like I'm a man of hugely high emotions.
Right.
Like I said, I went to public school, so I actually think I'm kind of relatively emotionally stunted. In terms of like.
No, I don't think you are.
I don't think you are, man.
Well,
if you allow me to, and I mean that in a lovely way. I don't mean in a you always smash it every time I say something wrong. You'll smash the bar up. You're not that sort of look. He's giving me that look. That sort of character. But there's a heartfelt honesty to your work. I do feel that there's a bleed from your heart onto the page somewhere.
I have a passion for making things extreme,
right?
In my art, or I get kind of bored, right? So speaking of influences, one of the guys I've been watching quite a lot recently is Daniel Warren Johnson. Yeah. So when and a few years ago it's Frank Whiteley, and now it's Daniel Warren. It's like but they are in the back of my mind, sort of. So, I don't copy him. I don't think I could copy him, but the thing that now is I can bring to it is I can look at Daniel Warren Johnson's art and I could say I really like how he does that. I'm going to take that and bring it into my art in a way that reflects how I draw, right? So, there is a sort of unbelievable ability on his part to portray action in comics. And you were talking a little bit about this on the ACP podcast with Jeff Smith.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
He was talking about how to bring kind of action into comics and how he was inspired by, that like the animation flows through. It's like, okay, well, there are ways of rendering on this page, even static scenes that have a sort of dynamism to them, even if they're still, if two people in conversation, there are ways of portraying it. So, I mean, basically, most of the stuff I'm struggling with is to try and keep interested. It's like, okay, well, I don't like this. I'm going to change it so it looks, different, more dynamic. I'm going to stretch the human form, I'm going to ignore some anatomy principles, or I'm going to ignore some physical principles in order to try and draw this scene. Or, I'm going to, I'll use this digital pen, or I'll use another digital pen in order to try and, bring some vibrancy or interest to it for myself, some experimentation and things like that. So, it's constant experiment with evolution. I'm always evolving, I think, as an artist with every picture that I draw, which can be great because it keeps you interested, but it can be frustrating because if I have to pull 24 pages out for Tony Osmond, I don't want the style at the beginning to necessarily be completely different from the style at the end.
I think the good thing about being in this area of comics is we can do that if we want.
I like that to be intentional.
Yeah,
I like that to be intentional. I don't want it to be an accident of just circumstance.
Yeah,
I do like to be able to sort of I like to be able to draw in a style that is consistent, as much as I like to be able to spin off tangentially into something else where I'm just, like, so. But yeah, well, no, I mean, I can only say thank you. It's like
the thing is that with you though, I think you're doing yourself a slight disservice, because some of the most emotional, the most touching work I've read in years has been work by you, man. Some of your autobio, your parent stuff, the stuff you've done, fucking knocked me on my arse, man. It has,
Yeah, so that's more me trying to be in search of an emotion, I think, because I find it a bit of a struggle. So just a bit of context. I'm married to a therapist, as you know well, Tony.
Trophy wife.
So yep, trophy wife. And Americans in general are very much about talking about their feelings all the time and sort of digging into that. And that has been a consistent struggle, because I think, Tony, coming out of that public school experience, I don't know if you had that similar thing, but
I'm the same, man. I like to talk to other people about their emotions. I just don't like talking about my own. I suppose.
No, nobody. I think it's a discomfort. It's a language that you learn. Emotions are that's definitely, you have to be like, well, the word anger means this kind of feeling. But so when I came out of public school, they had done their best, I think, to stunt me as a human being and mold me into whatever it is that a public school is supposed to mold young men into.
Okay.
But that idea of Victorian empirism sort of hung over the idea of the kind of people the public school would need to turn out in order to be able to maintain an empire, right? Don't think too much, don't care too much, be prepared to put your life on the line or that of other people. That was kind of the, it was like, don't think, don't feel, just do. You bury it all down and you just go do it. So for me, like the exploration on the page of art is also an exploration of trying to investigate some of these weird feelings that I don't quite understand. And, especially the stuff around my mum's dementia. She had an Alzheimer's diagnosis and she's in a home now, but, just trying to understand that. I find that, it's not necessarily comics, but where I come in for an approach with art and illustration is like, how do I translate that onto the page in a way that, might communicate to other people?
Isn't that very similar
even to myself?
That's interesting, man, because isn't that what Francis Bacon says? He was asked what art is, and he says art is a recreation of one thing into another. And people take that as a literal. People think, oh, you're drawing a bowl of fruit, but you don't. It's the interpretation of love. It's the interpretation of anxiety. It's interpretation of hate and murder. It's the interpretation of many things into an image or a page or a statue or whatever it's going to be. And I kind of think that's what you're doing there. You're taking that as honestly as you can. You're taking that emotion you felt around your mother. Incidentally, the best thing in DUI, that story, man, just brilliant. And you're putting that on a page, and even when we do our silly stuff, when you and I draw Jane McDonald, you're taking that. And that feeling of anarchy and the fact that me, you and Sarah just had this massive laugh about it and it became a story, and that is what translates onto a page. It's lovely to see Spider-Man swinging through New York, isn't it? We all enjoy it. We all have done, or see Wolverine unsheath his claws. But there's got to be something else to it, I think, somewhere.
And that is narrative, I think. If you're looking for something. If you want to connect with people... when I do commissions and things like that are static single images, and Ian, I'd really be interested to hear what your approach is. But my approach is, if I'm going to send you a picture and you're paying for it, A, I'm going to do the best possible work that I can. B, if it's even a singular image, there has to be a story to it. Some action, something that you can read into it. So I never do static figures just standing, or torso like top 3/4, or a picture of the face. It's like, no, with that Red Sonja, there was a narrative to it. It looked like a panel. It looked like it could have been a panel in a story that was ongoing. You could see that, and so you can imagine, okay, something came before this and this is leading up to something, and it's up to me, because there's no other surrounding context, it's up to me to put that into a story. So
what do you think, Ian, around that? Sorry. Yeah.
I think the whole process of making art is just one of the most freeing things you can do in terms of your mental health and just looking after yourself as well. It's to me, it's a big part of it, the actual process of making the work. Cliff's talking about working through emotions. Sometimes for me, it's almost like putting everything aside and just almost going into a void where nothing is really mattering to me other than getting this right, getting this image as good as I could possibly get it. And that free space in your mind to just let the world's worries just sort of drift away, and you're just worrying about making the best art you possibly can. So it's like two sides to it. And I think one thing I'd like to do in the future is to maybe explore some of these things, because the only comics work I've ever really done has been the ideas of other people that I'm then interpreting the best I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's very, like, quite a freeing experience. With one of the books I do, Kia Wordsmith, Dave gives me sort of like a very brief sort of script outline, kind of more what I'd suppose the Marvel method is like. And then when I'm working on Hellbreaker, it's much more structured, but in a way that allows me to free up my thinking even more, because I know exactly what the writer wants for pretty much every panel. And so I sort of say
even
this
when
a lot.
we worked together, I was very sort of prescriptive, but I was very sort of broken down panel to panel.
Yeah, I like working either way is great, but one of the things one day, and this is going to be way off in the future, I think, but one day I would like to do something that I'm putting a bit more of my actual. I put a lot of my learning, a lot of my influences, a lot of the thoughts of the writer on the page, hopefully some skill and technique as well. Maybe, like Cliff was very kind, a bit of individuality as well. But really, I'm just reimagining other people's thoughts, where Cliff and yourself and other artists that you work with, they're more driven by their own narratives and their own ideas and their own thought processes.
Well, man, we've talked about it before, but there's a massive auto-bio comic in you, Geezer. You know,
yeah,
isn't there really? Yeah. An interesting one, the best kind of one. You know.
Yeah, and you can bring. Go on, Claire.
No, I'd say, can I just say, and I think, an auto-bio comic from you would be wonderful. But you know, okay, I'm going to pay you a compliment, so I'll hold up. You're an artist, Ian.
Yeah,
you are.
Agreed.
And I think that's almost quite difficult to define. But I think you sort of bring an artist's perspective to art. Does that make any sense, or is that it sounds reductive?
Yeah, no, I get it.
But it's we talk about writers and sort of actors and things like that. And there are people who do art and don't really think about it, and there are people who do art but they put themselves into it, even if it's somebody else's stuff. And I think that is. When I say it's like, okay, here's an Ashcroft piece, that is in terms of like similar similar to saying, okay, here's a Rodin sculpture or something like that, right? Here's
a Larkin poem. You can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a uniqueness to it where you can say, okay, nobody else in the world draws like Ian Ashcroft.
Thank you, and I love that. I love Rodin as well. He was another big influence on me. I love his sculptures, but thank you, Cliff. That's very kind.
I think what I'm saying is that the art that you bring to the page is more broadly influenced by other art than just like comics and stuff. I feel like you bring a real painterly touch to the stuff that you do, and you are only getting better. You are just on that curve of like everything I see from you as it goes chronologically, as it gets better. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
It's like
I'm very lucky right now. I am working with probably the best teacher, like probably the best editor, the best teacher, the best person to listen to about getting better. And it can be really tough because there's someone who doesn't accept anything other than that like perfectionist quality that we were talking about earlier. But what an opportunity. It's a pinch myself opportunity, and there is a burden that comes along with that, but I don't know. Thank you very much, Cliff. That's really kind, and that's something I've been striving for a long time.
Well,
although you sort of said like the artwork looks like mine. When I was first starting out, it looked like Jay Lee. It looked like I was. If you look at the first issue of Keir Wordsmith, maybe even a few of the subsequent ones as well, I'm just sort of like drawing a comic how I think someone should draw a comic rather than the way I wanted to draw a comic. And if I look at what I'm doing right now, I think maybe some of the faces may be a bit similar, but a lot has changed and evolved in the art style from then.
But that's the benefit of critique, right? And what we're missing in the modern comics world and also the modern art world is the ability for people to give and take critique. Yeah. And I know, Tony, we've had endless conversations about this, and just the degree to which, other influences are just like the celebrity fan worship, where it's like it's like, no, I'm just looking for people who love my stuff, and I have no interest in growing as an artist or as a person. But for me, the great thing about art college and just sort of being in journalism is that I always had people leaning over my shoulder to tell me when I was doing shit work, right? And the ability to be able to take that criticism, put it into context, and improve is that's the thing that gets you from being an amateur to a professional so much more quickly, is your ability to be able to be like, okay, I can take this criticism and I can use it to improve myself.
Yeah, I agree, man. There's a lot of people who could do with looking up the definition of review. Do you know what I mean? I think I want to cycle back to well-being as well in a second with you, Ian, but the thing I think that people get wrong about Pat, and obviously we all know Pat, and is that his reputation since I think probably the 2000 AD documentary is that he will shout at you down the phone. That's and I love that about him. I love the fact he will tell you. But the thing is, Pat is incredibly caring as a creator. I sent you a piece I wrote today, and I read that to Pat when I was away on holiday with him, and he was encouraging, and he points things out, and we discuss things, and he is like the ultimate mentor. Okay, he's got the reputation for the Mills bomb, which I think I have to say I think he probably enjoys, and I'm glad he does it because I think probably there's some editors who needed it. But that's the thing with him. He is this incredibly great mentor that these people are out there. I saw a tweet from J.M. DeMattis today. I saw a tweet. These people today, who are out there, but they're sort of seemingly ignored for these Twitter language people that seem to be working at the big two now. I just want to say that bit. But let's cycle back to the well-being thing. And you were talking about, and you rightly brought up the point. I know we're running a bit late, sorry guys. But you rightly brought up the point about art as a well-being tool, and I think that can never be overstressed, the fact that it is brilliant for that. And I'm no artist. I mean, I suspect that probably everyone who's listening to this and everyone in the room has had their own demons at some point or other. And I found that drawing really helped me with problem solving, problems, stuff like that. And I'm no artist, but to sit down and draw every day is brilliant. It's what it does so help. And I can't think people who have it as a living and sit there at their drawing boards complaining about it all the time. I'm thinking this must be brilliant for you guys.
Yeah, it's the dream, really. It's like one of the things I say to students who are choosing their options and like, well, what kind of job can I get with art? And, I don't shy away from the fact that it's really difficult to get a great job doing art.
And increasingly so, yeah.
And increasingly so. And more and more, those jobs are becoming maybe less about art, more about the computer, really. But putting all that to one side, I say, what it will also offer you is a space on your timetable that is a little bit different to everything else. It will offer you a new sort of challenge, a challenge to be creative, a challenge to be calm, a challenge to just put something out there that's of yourself, like what we've all been talking about. And that draws a lot of students into the subject because I think it's like almost promoting PE for physical well-being, looking at things like the arts, and I think in particular drawing, because it can be such a long, protracted thing that you do over as many years as you've got your health. you know, you're not relying on general fitness, I suppose. You can be drawing right up until your old age. It can be a hobby that stays with you. It's absolutely crucial. And I'm always happier when I am frequently drawing,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you're right, man, about the physical. You know, the perfect day for me, if I had the time, would be I'd try and go for a run in the mornings, and then I'd draw something over lunch. You know, then it's just you'd find yourself so much more invigorated during the afternoon session to get the work done, whatever your job is. If you could, you know, just do that, I think. Not everyone.
Yeah,
has the time.
I don't really want to touch on the whole AI thing and whether it's art or whether it should be valued. But I don't think we'll ever get away from the need to create our own art, whether it's valued by anyone or not, is immaterial. People will just want to do it. People play the guitar in an empty room. Why do they do that? No one can hear it, but they're still doing it. And people will still draw, people will still print, people will still create. And as it happens, I think AI might be good, it might be bad, we don't know, but I don't worry that art or the arts will disappear because of it, because I think it's a compulsion that people have to do, not a luxury that we like around us.
Good. Well,
yeah, I absolutely agree with that. There is a human compulsion to create. And however we do that, it brings us enormous satisfaction just as a human pursuit. You know, the creation can be anything. The art can be anything. It could be building a fence or whatever. I mean, you know, whatever. There is something about engaging in the practice of creation, the problem solving, the envisioning, the you know, the struggle, the triumph, the enjoyment, all of that.
A lot of things can be treated as art that aren't necessarily things that spring to mind. Like you say, like building a fence, but also writing a scientific paper or, you know, researching a political subject or, you know.
It's a frame of mind that we bring to that, right?
Yeah, it's the free thinking exploration of stuff sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you could just write a paper, or you could be like, well, you know what? I'm going to really bring myself and my cognition to this paper to be able to make it something else, right? It's that there is something intentional behind it, and also something completely magical, because you know it's sort of something fundamental to what we are as
emotionally instinctual. I think, definitely, yeah. Well, right, I have to get to you for longer than I said, but that was quite inspirational for normally three blokes who normally just take the piss out of each other constantly for the whole time.
Well, you need to. We'll do that in the next one. We'll go back to just slagging each other off.
So, Ian, what have you got coming up? What can you say? So, have you got any conventions coming up or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got Bridlington Comic Con coming up, and I don't know the date, but it's coming up sometime in September, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yes, I can't wait. Been there the last 2 years. I think Andy, who runs it, does a fantastic job. I mean, it's maybe quite small scale, but
he's promised me I'll be next door to Madeline Smith. That's a verbally binding agreement.
Define next to.
Inside,
what's the
I believe is the phrase.
Let's fast forward maybe 5 years. It'd be the biggest con in the north.
It could be, couldn't it? That'd be nice.
You never know. Stranger things.
Bridlington ain't a bad place. I liked it.
No, it's great.
It's by the sea.
Yeah, I'd have run along the beach in the morning. Fucking gorgeous it was.
Yeah, when the sun's out, you can't. You know, these seaside towns, when the sun's out, they're all great, aren't they? It's just when it's miserable and grey.
We got told to be quiet in the bar because we've been too noisy during the bingo. Genuinely, that's a genuine story. Yeah. Good. And then we're seeing you for Convention coming up in July.
Yes.
That's going to be a good one.
We're being down in London and seeing everyone, seeing both of you and Adam and Dan. It's quite a
Sam's coming along from No Brow. There's a few people going on.
We know what Convention is, right? We need to explain that to the readers.
I suppose so. So Convention is when Cliff, whose last name is Cumber, therefore we call it Convention.
No relation whatsoever, just a random letter.
Yeah, no relation to QAnon. So nobody think, it's the MAGA comic convention in London. So we all get to. It sounds like it's a very grand event, but it just involves us all getting together and drinking and drawing stuff.
Yeah,
people normally draw foul images of me doing things.
And we did it 2 years. We did it 2 years ago, didn't we? We were in what was it, Brick Lane?
Around the corner from
Simon,
Brick Lane. Yeah, and
Buddy Simon brought along some pens and paper, and
great idea. Yeah, a load of people turn up, and we're looking at trying to find. Me and Dan are off to find a pub next Thursday, so I don't know what'll happen there, but we've got a couple of venues we're going to visit, and anyone is welcome. Yeah,
yes,
genuinely. If you listen to this and you fancy coming along, drop us an email, and you can come along and worship at the Shrine of Q.
Or even better, join the ACP Slack.
Good point. Thank
because
you, mate.
That's where we're all discussing, all the details and everything else.
We'll have a little Qvention group. Yeah.
I have to say, Tony has very kindly taken it on himself to organise this, which is.
I'm looking forward to it. That's good. And then in a couple of weeks, me and you are meeting. It's about 3-4 weeks away. We're going to be in Charlotte, in North Carolina, at Heroes Convention. So if you're there, please do say hello to us.
Not tabling. We'll be wandering as poultry punters.
Troublemaking.
Just troublemaking.
Yeah. Midnight dinering. What is it? Is it the Midnight Diner? It's called the Midnight Diner. Is it? Is that the name of the place we go to?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
What's that place we took our son to? Our gay son.
Our gay son, Adam.
People
he's not gay. We're the gay ones.
We're the gay. People thought we were like two dads for Adam because he was our son.
Yeah.
We leaned into it. We thought it was all right.
We did nothing to discourage that interpretation. Yeah, it was kind of funny.
That's going to be good.
That diner will be going there, and
are you doing commissions for it, Cliff?
Probably.
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I've had somebody's from the 11 o'clock comics Slack. They like raid heroes. It's like they all go there.
Yeah.
And he has asked me to do a commission for him. So.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'll do that before or when I'm there. And
I think probably before is going to be the best idea because you and I are sharing a hotel room. You know you're going to get no chance to do it in it because we'll have to rent another pair of bongos and play the bongos in the room.
Yeah, and he'll probably be like, "This looks like somebody mushroom stabbed their dick on this picture of Hawkman."
Someone's drawn around their penis.
How did this get here?
Oh, I'm just walking out the shower when you arrived back, Cliff.
Just all of a sudden, he tripped and fell into a pot of ink and then rolled onto my artwork. I don't know.
Like the time I fell down the stairs, Hetty the Hoover was there. Right, okay. Make sure you go to a comic shop and pre-order American Nature. It's got comics in it by Josh Pettinger. It's got some Santos sisters from Greg and Fake. And it's got Carol, the costume designer, for the one and only Rich Tommaso. It's also got Phlox's Planet by Adam Tinius and Stephen Fortis, and it's got loads of writers in there who are adding their articles, including me. I've written something particularly filthy about blowjobs, which I'm really pleased they put in there. To be fair, but
I'm scandalised. Yeah. I'm absolutely scandalised. I'm going to start going on Twitter with a cancel American Nature hashtag American Nature.
It was during my talk of influences. I was heavily influenced by Philip Roth's book on wanking for that one. Good stuff. And where can we find you online, Ian?
Nowhere at the moment because I'm off social media for a little bit. But to be fair, I've got a Patreon if people would like.
Yes, you should get on that. How can they find that?
Ian Ashcroft Art on Patreon. It's got a lot of stuff on there now for £1 a month. And
it has.
No one's very interested, but there is a lot on there. There's a whole comic that never got published called Roanoke. There's loads. All the pencils for Keir Wordsmith, I think issue 1 are on there.
You got some Hellbreaker stuff on there?
50 odd posts on the new Hellbreaker book that's coming out in September.
I am signed up to it, and
I am as well.
Ian has made the commitment to me that that we own him.
Yeah.
Now
I got a finger.
We bought stakes. Yeah, it's like tiny. What does a pound get you? Get you that. Get you a little like an inch worth.
Means whenever we're in his hometown, we can stay around his house. So technically, that
it does. If you are ever in my hometown, you can stay at my house.
Right, booking the flight now. Hold on.
And where can we find you, Clifford?
So you can find me in a couple of places. I do a lot of stupid stuff on TikTok mostly, but also on social media, and it's all CG Cumber, first two initials, last name. So you know that's a username across all of my socials. But you can also read the occasional monthly column and updates on various things to do with comics. I write for my local newspaper once a month, but I also have a Substack, thelongbox.substack.com. Love to encourage people to come on and read.
Good on it, man. And can you say the name of your newspaper?
It is the Frederick News Post. I write for their Arts and Culture magazine, 72 Hours, and one of the few remaining comics columns, probably in print,
It's great, man.
anywhere in North America. I don't think I've been able to find any sort of legit newspapers that have committed to
And may I say,
any kind of comic stuff.
The best thing I read written about Pisca, about the Ed Pisca.
Oh,
problem.
yeah, that very, very kind. Yeah, I did write a column about my thoughts and feelings on that very sad, tragic events that surrounded Ed Piscor's suicide. And yeah, I've had some very kind comments on that. And
very good, man.
Well,
yeah, good stuff.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening, guys, and thanks for turning up and having a chat. That was incredibly interesting. I'm not saying I'm surprised. I'm just saying I thought it would go a bit off the rails more than it did. Bear in mind how it started.
You're asking all these fucking serious questions,
I know,
Tony.
but it was. I was very impressed. You can find Flesh and Ink from us. It's coming. I think it's the test print will be in 2 weeks' time for that one. We're getting that back, and then hopefully in time for Heroes, I'll have copies of that we'll be sending out to the backers of it. Yeah, it's good, man. Adam's redrawn it. It looks great. And then we've got other projects on the go. So find all about them at neverironanything.com. Thanks, guys. Thanks for that. And I dare say we shall continue chatting in a second.
Yeah, love you, Ian.
See you later.
You too. Bye bye.